Welcome back once again. Another Monday or Tuesday. I don't know when this will be released, but anyway, today, as I said, we will continue with that Echo F1 discussions, which will be several episodes. But today we will focus on the racetracks. The racetracks, as you can know, this year the F1 has 23. China is not included yet. Next year we will have 24 races. But anyway, 23 races, 23 races from which we have a good portion that are tending to go towards this new idea of putting street racetracks instead of permanent racetracks, right? This is the calendar for the actual season, right? 2023. We have Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Australia, and so on, right? As you can see, China is not there, but it will be there next year, most probably. Even though, as you can see, the contract. Oh no, sorry, this is the time of the calendar. Anyway, because I thought China has a longer contract. Anyway, as you can see from this calendar, we do have several racetracks that are, like I said, street racetracks, right? We have Saudi Arabia, we have Azerbaijan, Miami, Monaco, Singapore, and Las Vegas. These are 6 races out of 23 that are street racetracks. Considering that F1 in the early 2000s, let's say, only had Monaco as a street racetrack, you could consider Canada if you want, or Melbourne in Australia street racetracks, because it's a racetrack where cars can go during the rest of the year, right? It's not permanent, kind of permanent, semi-permanent, let's call it. Okay, let's include these two, semi-permanent. So you have Canada and Australia as well, and you can see this tendency of removing, let's say, permanent racetracks to try to go into street racetracks. I'm guessing the reason number one behind this idea, it's because number one, building a new racetrack for the F1 to host the F1 is very expensive. You need to pass I don't know how many tests and regulations, and you need to build a racetrack far away because it's going to be very noisy, which will make it not convenient for people to go there, right? A street racetrack is more convenient for the people to go to see the race, right? Like if you're in Monaco, you live in Monaco, the racetrack is in the middle of the city. Same like perhaps Singapore or Las Vegas. Maybe it's gonna be in the middle of Las Vegas, right? Azerbaijan, Saudi Arabia is a place where it was actually built for the F1. It's a whole city kind of built for the F1, and it's a street racetrack. Because it's built like that, right? I mean, anybody can go on the racetrack during the rest of the year. The walls are very close to the racetrack. There is no runways. There is no astroturf or grass or gravel. The walls are right there. So all of these racetracks are street racetracks. So the idea behind this is to bring F1 closer to people instead of making people move for the F1. This is what I had in my mind. Same like Miami, perhaps. But in the USA, I think it's a little bit different, because these people are used to use the car to go absolutely everywhere. Their life and their cities and their everything is based on using the car, as in maybe the difference than the rest of the world, where public transportation perhaps is much more convenient. But anyway, you can see that this started, of course, with Monaco, and there used to be other street racetracks long ago as well. F1 maybe started as a thing with street racetracks, but as F1 evolved into having faster cars and cars that are required to go lower to the ground, had smooth surfaces, so these cars could work to reduce the risk of accidents and everything. You could see that F1 moved into more a permanent racetrack kind of competition, right? Monaco remained there, and then later Singapore was added, for example, right? as a street racetrack thing. However, street racetracks usually have this thing that they are extremely boring, and you might see why. Okay, this is a Jeddah. This is a Saudi Arabia racetrack. You can see the walls are very close to the racetrack, right? Not to say right there. It's limited by the wall. What does this mean? This means that if you make a mistake, you're out. If you make a mistake, you will damage the car, and if it's a slight mistake, maybe you can go into the pits and repair it. But usually, even just a small punch to the wall will mean that your suspension is broken, or you have a flat tire, or you have a front wing or rear wing broken. Something in your car is gonna get damaged. You don't have this margin of error. What does this mean? This means that drivers will take less risks. Drivers might have a huge accident if they take a risk. Like we saw Mick Schumacher, which is one of the reasons why he got fired from Haas. Despite, for me, and this is my own opinion, he was having a good end of the season, staying in front of Magnussen, for example, in the last races. And in the last races, I mean the last like 8-9 races. But anyway, this is one of the racetracks where Mick Schumacher broke the car in two. The other one is Monaco. Both of them street racetracks. Racetracks where mistakes are paid with a really big bill from part of the spare parts department. Mick Schumacher broke two cars in half, one here, one in Monaco. Both street racetracks. And he's not the only one, by the way. There's many drivers in history where they had a lot of accidents in street racetracks. So anyway, you can see this. Like I said, does not allow to have mistakes, which means overtakings are not going to be very often. You will not see drivers trying to do something outrageously courageous, something like this, right? If you compare this racetrack, for example, which we will have this weekend, with the one that we just had in Bahrain, where you could see any car overtaking in any corner, right? Why? Because they have their kind of assurance, let's say, that if they make a mistake, they will not crash the car. If they make a mistake, they can come back to the racetrack, right? You could see Alonso overtaking almost in every single corner, right? And not just Alonso, any driver could attempt to overtake in any kind of corner. In Jeddah, and I'm saying Jeddah as an example because we can go to Monaco, for example, where you can see this car over here trying to overtake in a corner where two cars cannot steer. Like you need to go all the way here to try to go all the way here to try to go all the way here. This is the maximum steering that an F1 can do, and you need to go very slow. This probably ended up in an accident because this car cannot steer all the way here. But anyway, you get the point, right? You do not have the space to make mistakes. You do not have the space to make an overtaking. Monaco is the worst example possible because you cannot overtake anybody. You need to have, like, somebody in front of you must make a mistake so you can overtake. And even like that is very difficult. Comparing, like I said, Bahrain, and I put Bahrain because it's the first race that we had this year, at any other racetrack, with street racetracks, you will see that drivers will not take so many risks. Drivers will, how to say, like, they will conserve, they will think about it twice before trying something, especially if you're fighting for the points, right? If you have access, let's say you're fighting for P10 and you're Williams, you might try to go for it. But if you are in P5 and you're fighting for P4, I mean, are you going to risk to have an accident to try to overtake here, for example? Here, are you gonna? Not really, right? If you go back to Jeddah, are you really gonna try to overtake somewhere? Like here, for example, you can't. So yeah, I either overtake here or at the end of the pit lane straight, which is here. Those are the only two places where you can overtake in Jeddah. And you can see even teammates, like we saw last year, Alpine, right? They were fighting with each other, almost had an accident. How we saw in 2021, Verstappen and Hamilton almost crashing with each other because they didn't allow them to, or Verstappen didn't want to let him go in a normal place. But anyway, Let's go to Miami, for example. Miami is a street racetrack, and I call it street racetrack because it's built around a football stadium, and it's not permanent. It's built for the F1, and then they will remove it, right? Here you have some extra spaces. You have the walls here. It's kind of like the Russian Grand Prix, right? You might still have accidents, but Miami is more kind of like a street racetrack with a feeling of a more permanent racetrack. It's a kind of like a mixture, right? Like for example Canada, where you still might have some spaces that allow you to make some mistakes and then come back to the racetrack. But this is only in a couple of places of the racetrack, not everywhere. You might see, for example, Las Vegas, that I have expectations to see. But as you can see, once again, you have all the walls over here, all the walls over here. It's a racetrack built in a street where this is an area where I imagine this is gonna be built for the F1, right? All these grandstands. But then you will go into an area where you have all these hotels and streets and everything. Las Vegas, of course, is in the USA and the streets are very wide, but still, you have the wall. If you make a mistake, you go against the wall. Do you think you're gonna... Does anybody think that we're gonna see any overtakings in Las Vegas? With the DRS, maybe, but I mean, it's not the same thing, right? If you make a mistake, you go to the wall, you break the car. Is this what the F1 should be like? Or should we see something more like permanent racetracks? Should we try to keep Spa-Francorchamps, for example, in the calendar, where you might see more overtakings, where you might see half of the racetrack wet and the other one not? Should we try to keep Monaco in the calendar instead of this? Is this it's closer to the people again, yes, but is this the direction it should go? I don't know. I honestly don't feel it. Like Singapore, for example, where overtaking is very difficult. And we see accidents every year. The safety car chances are extremely high, obviously. And you don't see a lot of overtakings, right? Singapore has only one place where you can overtake. Kind of. The other one is where is the bridge? I'm trying to think where is the bridge. This is a straight line. I don't know if this is the bridge. Yeah, I think this is the bridge. So this is one of the areas where you can overtake. One. And the other one is at the end of this straight. Yeah, kind of straight, right? You can see there's a corner there, but anyway. This is like the main overtaking area. And the other one is at the end of the bridge here. The rest of the racetrack you cannot overtake, mainly because the two cars don't fit. You see many accidents of people trying to overtake here, by the way. Many years recently we see accidents right there because people are trying to overtake where they can't. We see accidents after here as well. There is a big curb here where if you stand on it, you damage the car, number one. And number two, you make it possible for the guy that is next to you or behind you to try to overtake here, which usually causes them accidents because nobody wants to give in. For my own opinion, these kind of ideas, if you have one or two racetracks that are in the streets, like this, Singapore, for example, right? Or Miami or Las Vegas, I don't care. But if you have so many and you try to bring more, like you're bringing Las Vegas, like you're bringing Miami, right? Azerbaijan, all these new, like people might, like for a show, for as a view like this, like if you see it from the helicopter, it looks very nice, right? But are you going to see a nice Grand Prix? No. Are you going to see an interesting Grand Prix? No. Right? Is Las Vegas gonna be an interesting Grand Prix? I don't know. Visually, as you can see, this is of course, it's a computer made. But anyway, visually, look how amazing it looks like. It's at night, which, by the way, I will talk about night races in another episode. It's at night, you have all these lights, the casinos here, look at how many people. Hey, yeah, F1! But are these people F1 fans? Not really. Do they care about F1? No, they just wanna go there to take the picture. They just wanna see this F1 thing, but are you going to enjoy the race? I don't think so. And don't get me wrong, there are many permanent racetracks that also have a lot of issues. And I complained a long time ago about these racetracks, which for me are Barcelona racetrack, right? Hungarian Grand Prix, extremely boring, useless Grand Prix, right? I used to call the three. Monaco, of course, the third Grand Prix. So those three for me are extremely useless. You could call Suzuka as well because you cannot overtake as well in Suzuka, but still, that Grand Prix has some feeling of a racetrack, right? But I don't know. I have the feeling that F1 is trying to do, let's call it like a merchandise, like something visual to go and see, instead of trying to create fans that actually enjoy the motorsport, right? You see people taking pictures for Instagram and then they don't give a crap about the racing itself. You see Max Verstappen, Red Bull, yeah, Red Bull, super cool. They don't even know what's happening in the race. I prefer to be racing in places where it's more, let's call it like a motorsport related things, right? I think I already spoke about the races that I would like to see in the F1 calendar. For example, in the USA, instead of going to Las Vegas, you can go to more permanent racetracks that are more interesting to drive on. Like I mentioned in the USA, because I'm saying the USA because the F1, obviously Liberty Media is from the USA. They are trying to bring attention to the USA as a market instead of trying to expand, I don't know, in Asia. But anyway, you have Road America, for example. You have Sonoma. You have I don't know, other racetracks that are permanent, are nice, are interesting to watch, but are not as convenient and visually nice as the one in the image, which is Las Vegas, for example, right? Or going to Singapore, the center in Asia, let's call it, for people to go there, right? Instead of going to Japan or South Korea or China, it's more visually attractive to go to Singapore, where people will be there. There are foreigners, there are Asians, Malaysian people might go there, Thailand people might go there, Chinese, Vietnamese, anybody can go to Singapore. It's kind of like in the middle, right? I mean, yes, F1 is doing a very good work trying to bring more money into the teams and to the championship, which is mainly what they have to be working on since the hybrid times since 2014. They brought a lot of damage to the competition in terms of economy and the viewers that were there, right? The motorsport was kind of killed, which is gonna happen as well, more or less, in these years with the dominance of Red Bull. There has always been a team that dominates, except for like 2010 to 13, where there was more competition. You could see like 2012, I think it was, but there were many drivers fighting for the championship from different teams, right? That is the F1. That is what F1 should be like. Different teams with different ideas, different solutions, different engineerings, instead of making all the cars the same. And they were fighting for the championship without having the same car, let's call it. I call the same car because if you look now, all the cars look the same. They were different concepts. But anyway, that is another subject. I feel that going to street racetracks, might bring you more money, more merchandising, more viewers, but more sponsorships maybe. But you're losing the soul of the competition. I want to see more racetracks like Bahrain, where you can overtake. I want to see more racetracks like Spa, where one must have, let's call it like balls, right, to drive around. I want to see like daring racetracks. I want to see racetracks where you might see, I don't know, speed with some kind of risk of risk. I don't know, like I call it risk, but I mean it's having courage to try to overtake, to make mistakes, to try to go fast. Whether to be fast, you must compromise and be courageous, right? I call it Spa. I mean, because Spa is the racetrack that represents this. A racetrack where you must, to go up the Eau Rouge, perhaps not with these recent cards, but you must try to fight with your right leg to try to go up at full speed or rise a little bit. And if you raise the foot from the pedal, then somebody will overtake you if they are more courageous than you. I want to see racetracks like that instead of going to racetracks like these ones, right? Instead of going to Las Vegas, where you don't have this feeling of, oh, it's so daring, might be dangerous. No, it's just a normal racetrack built around some streets with lights, right? I don't know. This new racetrack that they're bringing now, like Qatar, for example, in Lusail, I don't have any special feeling about that one. Same like Abu Dhabi. Of course, they pay a huge amount of money, like I mentioned in another episode about how much every racetrack is paying for that. They pay like 50 to 60 million, while permanent racetracks in Europe, for example, they are paying 20 million. It's not fair, but of course they are paying to be there with a very boring racetrack. Anyway, this is a feeling. Should F1 go to more street racetracks? For me, no. Now, if you have my 1, 2, or 3, it's okay. But we can see the tendency that Liberty Media wants to go to street racetracks. By the way, there was one in Vietnam built that was also a street racetrack. That was before I think Liberty Media came in. There was a street racetrack built in Vietnam. I think it was in Hanoi, if I'm not mistaken. It didn't succeed. Because I think it was because of the COVID, maybe? I don't know. But anyway, that was another street racetrack. If you can see the tendency, once again. Another street racetrack. I don't want to see street racetracks. I don't want an IndyCar. I don't care. I want to see races. I don't want to see people in the races. I want to see races. Just a feeling. Anyway, my own feeling. I do not agree on how the F1 is trying to do things. I understand why they are doing it, but I do not agree with it. I want to see more Spas. I don't want to see more Las Vegas. I don't want to see more Singapores. I want to see more Spa, Francorchamps. Anyway, just a feeling. If you agree or do not agree, let me know your thoughts in the comments. And see you in the next episode where I will talk about the night races in the F1. Take it easy and see you.